What about its transmissibility? It more spread more easily?
There are mutations in Omicron that are similar to those that have previously occurred in other variants that have increased transmissibility. And unfortunately, it looks like many of those mutations are going to cause resistance to at least some of the antibodies. That's really the nub of why we're particularly concerned about Omicron.
Speaking of which, two of the 5 variants of concern we see the Omicron. It was first detected in Botswana and South Africa, and the Beta it was first detected in South Africa. Is that a coincidence?
Possibly not. So immunosuppressed individuals are a source of these variants of concern, then it might not be coincidental.
So may I ask, what do you think about this?
I think that's an entirely plausible, reasonable suggestion. There have been a number of studies that have gone either with HIV or other types of immune suppression that have shown that the virus tends to linger for a longer time at a high level in those individuals. And when it does so, it acquires a greater burden of mutations. And we know, of course, in Southern Africa, there are many people with HIV infection. There's an unusually large number of immunosuppressed individuals in that locale. We don't have proof in any sense, but it's absolutely a reasonable idea, I would say. But of course, it's it may not be a necessary condition. And of course, there are immunosuppressed individuals in other places in the world too. So it's not, there's nothing unique about Southern Africa, just perhaps a quantitative difference in the number of immunosuppressed individuals there. So thus far, it seems that variants of concern have had separate origins. There was actually quite a lot of talk that Delta would be the virus that really displaced everything else, and that going forward, it would all be derivatives of Delta would be the things that we would need to worry about. Now, that scenario has been proven wrong because we don't yet know whether it's going to displace Delta. The virus is going to decide that. Omicron does seem to be sort of quantitatively a step forward for the virus that we haven't yet seen previously. It is a step that I think is larger than expected. It would be difficult to say because there's nothing about this virus that says evolution is going to stop at any particular point. Whether sort of these large steps that appear to have been made by Omicron will be repeated, whether the next variants will be derivatives of Omicron, Delta, or somewhere else, that's just unpredictable at present. That it really depends on what the clinical outcome is going to be. It seems that many of the people in South Africa who were carrying Omicron in these early stages were younger people. And we know that age, overwhelmingly more than any other factor, really determines how serious SARS-CoV-2 infection is. So it might look like it's causing less illness, but that is quite likely because it's only been in young people so far. Omicron won't be the last variant. Obviously, the further away the virus evolves from the original viral strain, the less protection that current vaccines are going to give. So the worst possible outcome is that the vaccines are minimally effective and one vaccine isn't sufficient to control all of them. We have to constantly update and make new vaccines. That scenario actually exists for a coronavirus that infects chickens. I don't think that's how things are going to play out. I think the vaccines are going to retain substantial effectiveness, at least against serious disease. The virus and the immune systems are always playing catch up with each other, but the race is sufficiently close that serious illness is really rare. My biggest concern is what's going to happen next. If Omicron really is uncontrollable in terms of spread, then that does not bode well for the future in terms of constraining viral replication. So really the only way to do that is to make the virus population size as small as possible. And that means preventing infection, preventing transmission. That's basically it. How well can our immune systems cope with the diversification of the virus that we're seeing? One of the things we are working on, and many scientists around the world, is essentially to develop better vaccines that give broader protection, so that we can have antibodies that will tackle not just the current strains, but other strains that might appear in the future. The future threat of pandemics is to make vaccines that aren't necessarily tailored just to this variant, but can give a broader protection.
知道视频，有趣有料的新闻短视频。